Hello and welcome to the Core Report Special Energy Series. The time was when you would drive up into a petrol pump and load up or buy, let's say, 10 liters of petrol or diesel and pay your money cashless, maybe more likely, and then be on your way. But that relationship with that station or the petrol pump or with the company that provides or is selling that fuel is changing. One, because tomorrow you might have electric chargers there. You also have, of course, stores already where you might just walk in and buy things. So the nature of the whole consuming universe around energy is evolving. And so are the companies who are supplying that energy, whether it's refining companies or distribution companies. So let's try and understand from one company, what exactly is this relationship like, and how is it evolving as we go ahead and as we look into the future. I'm pleased to be joined by Krishnakumar Gopalan, the Chairman and Managing Director of Bharat Petroleum right here in Mumbai. Mr. Krishnakumar, thank you so much for joining me.
Pleasure.
So, there are many pumps I could go to when I fill gas in my car. But when I enter a Bharat Petroleum pump, I'm assuming and I'm expecting the experience to be a little different. But how is it that today I would know that? How would I know today that I'm actually in a Bharat Petroleum pump versus any other pump? And tell us about the experience and what goes into it.
If you walk into any Bharat Petroleum pump, what stands out clearly is the distinct blue and yellow color logo. And you have the RVI visual manifestation, which is actually a wave, which actually denotes what a core purpose of innovation, reliability, and caring is. That's the beginning. When you enter the outlet, we call it outlet. The petrol station is what we call it outlet. It's clearly distinct with the logo, and you will see a neatly spread out arrow. And at the entrance of every outlet, there is a forecourt supervisor smilingly guiding into these filling points where you can fill. And one of the primary differentiator amongst the three oil companies, way back in 1999, there was the environment was such that people did not trust the quality or quantity of the petrol which was being served or dispensed at these outlets. We took a very stated position way back in 99, and that was the evolution of our brand Pure for Sure, where he said, come to this outlet and we Bharat Petroleum will certify that these pumps will deliver you quality and quantity. That's the beginning of the whole. So when we promised that not in all pumps those days, but the early days then, we said this is a social movement where we are acknowledging, yes, we understand there is a problem and that you come to these outlets and we will guarantee you quality and quantity. That was a big game changer for us. The Pure for Sure actually became a social movement, and then it became a given. You have no choice. Although the consumer expected that he be given, but those were the days and the environment. And then we initially started with manual inspection, tightening it. Over the years, we've done a series of technological upgradations. Now we can certainly say most of our, there'll be few ROs which are not yet technologically upgraded, are Pure for Sure, and this is one thing. So we very clearly promise areas are that personalization, care, and trustworthiness is offered at these. This is the value proposition which we are offering at the outlet. One of the new features which we have now introduced is, okay, let me start at the beginning. When you enter the pump, you're guaranteed smiling forecourt supervisor takes you inside. Then he starts with, he shows you the zero. That's one of the primary thing to ensure that the quantity is being delivered as much as whatever you pay for. Once he does that, automatically the pump locks in and you will be delivered, and then there is a payment which is linked to it. So the payment is integrated to it. So that is one way of guaranteeing that you will get what you are dispensed for. Second, we have now introduced a newer technology, which we call it as UFill 2. In this, the customer can decide how much he wants to pay, how much he wants that quantity for, and it gets locked. As soon as he does it, the dispenser will dispense the fuel automatically. So there is no manual intervention of somebody setting the pump. So apart from this, when you go down, there is a air filling which you get. There is a convenience store located in most of these stations where you can pick up your which is called in and out, which is you can do your normal last minute emergency purchase. Most of the couples, they can pick up a ready to eat food. They can pick up some essential for those eggs and breads, or morning when they come back they can do. We can also, in some places there are ATMs where they can withdraw money and so on and so forth. So in the outlet, when they buy fuel, they have this one U-fill which is already preloaded through a UPI mechanism. Credit card payments are always available. We have our own loyalty programs, which was one Petro bonus and now Smart Fleet for the fleet customers. These are mechanisms where you can pay and loyalty is rewarded. So this is as far as the cities are concerned. When you go down the highways, we have a lot of intermittent stations, which we call it GAR. GAR are it's a home away from home, where the drivers, we believe, every 250 kilometers they have a natural halting point. At those locations, there are essential needs for a driver. If you look at a driver, a long distance driver, he's very, very particular about his goods he carries, because that is what do you call it? The whole transaction is on the good. So he doesn't like to leave the vehicle for a long time. So normally there is a cooking space arranged for him. He cooks. There is a dormitory if required. There is a toilet. So these are facilities which we are providing on the highways, which will now then be a stopping over point for these guys. And we understand that not everybody stops at that outlet. So we have now spaced these pumps at different 250-kilometer intervals. We have also upgraded the pumps in between so that the other people can use facility, which may not be of that standard. So we are now providing a complete journey solutions across the highways. With the introduction of EVs, we are also taking up highways where we are giving complete network of chargers, where one of the key factors for anybody adapting to a EV vehicle is the range anxiety. He wants to know, if I take a vehicle, will I be able to charge enough time? So we have taken corridors. We have built about 10-12 corridors across the country, which covers about a range of 300-400 kilometers, and now we are spreading it across. Soon we will be about 7,000 stations which will have EV chargers, both city as well as. We are looking at options of
battery charging. But that would make it one of the largest networks. In
some time, okay? It's not going to be immediate, but in time to come, it will be one of the largest networks which we will have, which station. Maybe we'll look at going outside the outlets as well. But mostly we will be also looking at battery charging options, swapping options. These are things which it's work in progress.
Right. Okay, so let me go back to the pump. 2 or 3 things you mentioned. One is you said the person who smiles as you enter. Second is, which now that you say it, and it didn't strike me that it was a function of training, is the zero factor that, I mean, and I know that
it begins with a greeting, then he shows you the meter.
Yeah, and he insists. I mean, I've noticed that. Now that you say it's a function of training rather than, something that they do it instinctively or
this
something.
is one of our value proposition where I'm guaranteeing you Q and Q.
Right. Okay, so let me understand the technology part, and this is for people who want to know as well, right? So one is, you say, okay, there is no water, there is no mixing, there is no other sort of blending happening. So how do you demonstrate?
Right from the depot or installation, where the petrol or diesel is stored, it is loaded into a lorry. It is, after doing the necessary checks that I've loaded the correct product, correct quantity, it is sealed, electronically sealed. And then when he reaches the destination, both the recipient as well as the driver can open the lock together. So that is first step of guaranteeing. Then it goes into the tank, where there is an automatic tank gauge in most of the outlets, which is also gauges the quantity, any variation we can do. And there are density checks which are done to the product, so we know there is no quality change. All the quality necessary is there in the pumps. And when it goes back, when the pump dispenses the petrol, we also tell the customer that you can do a sample check and see whether the quantity or quality you've got is correct. So there is a 5-liter can which is kept. He can look at it. He can also check the density. So this up right in front, it is displayed that any customer, if he has a doubt, he can verify. Because we want to make sure there is no.
But do people do that?
Some people really do it.
Okay.
And sometimes they have pointed out some variants as well. So these are good ways to
get that feedback comes back into the BPCL system.
Exactly. And we make those course corrections. Sometimes it happens on long distance, but very rarely it happens. But immediately corrections are done.
Right. Okay. So let me now come to the refining side of it. So tell us about the journey. So suppose 1 barrel of crude lands outside Mumbai via container or a crude tanker. What is the journey from there into your refinery, and as it gets split, where does it go? What is the value add?
As you all know, crude is down underground in underground reservoirs. That's how the origin of crude. It's been there for years. It's a fossil fuel, right? So these are extracted through wells, And once it's extracted, it's transported through pipelines or maybe any other means to transport, and it is stored at a shore tank. And then it's discharged to various locations, various refineries across the world or maybe within the country. For example, in India, we don't get crude. So crude is imported. So largely, we have 3 refineries in the country. One is at Bombay, one is at Kochi, and one is at Bina in Madhya Pradesh. Bina and Kochi have the arrangements to import large VLCCs, what is called very large carriers, crude carriers, and they have something called single point mooring system at the sea, where the crude from the VLCC is a drought requirement, so they are little off the coast. They are delivered to the SPMs, and SPM from there it's transported through pipelines to the refinery. At the refinery, there is the 4 or 5 processes what the crude goes through. One is distillation, where based on the boiling points, the crude is separated and the products are separated. After distillation, there is cracking. In the cracking, the hydrocarbon molecules are broken down. Bigger hydrocarbon molecules are broken down. And then there is something called reforming. In the reforming stage, molecules are rearranged to add value. And then there are impurities which happen in this process, which is removed and separate. In spite of that, there are products which will have, so there will be further refining process which happen to remove the finer impurities or qualities, so that we get the desired performance level. From this crude, what is separated out is gasoline, which is now we call it petrol. There's diesel, there's LPG, and so on and so on. The multiple. From there, it is stored. Once it is separated, it's stored in a tank, which then again follow the same process through pipeline, by train, by lorries, whatever it is. It goes into regional depot locations, and from there to the respective petrol station, which is then dispensed to what you get it at the outlet. This is typically the journey of a crude.
Right. And if I were to look at, or if I were to ask you about the hierarchy, so let's say there's, and as a consumer, I would know about petrol, diesel, and maybe lubricants, which I'm going to ask you about in a moment. But let's say as a not as a consumer, but since I'm aware, there's jet fuel or aviation fuel, which is powering aircraft. So how does that, what is the hierarchy of, let's say that same one barrel?
It depends on the different boiling points. It is separated. Okay, then density, all that it is separated, and then they are stored in different tanks and different locations it is transported to. So depending on the need where it is, there are some locations which need only MS, some locations which need both MS diesel as well as HL. Depending on that is transported across.
Right.
And we have a wide network of depots and installations across the country. Aviation stations are largely located in the airport so that the fueling can happen.
So let's come to lubricants. So lubricants are also an important part of, let's say, what particularly, let's say, a 2-wheeler consumer or even a 4-wheeler consumer will buy. Where does this fit in the chain that you've just described to me?
So one of the products which segregates out of the refinery is something called lubricant blending stock, which goes into the refinery. There's a hydrocracker unit which segregates and makes the lubricants. So the lubricants, once it is made, then there is the base oil, what we call it, is blended at a lube oil installation with additives. Various formulations are made which are based on each engine performance. There are tests being done on these engines, and basis the performance levels required, there are various categories of lubricants blended and packed. Some are stored for industrial use in barrels, some are stored in small packs for individual customers. But this is a very, very intense business because for example, in the consumer world, most of the user does not know what oil goes into the engine. It's actually the mechanic who actually influences it, or the OEMs which make the car. So the game is how well you educate the consumer to make the difference.
Right. Okay, so let me ask you a larger BPCL question. I mean, if you were to look at the company today, and for someone who's trying to understand, so we've talked about, let's say, the experience at the pump and how that's changing and what goes into making that a good experience. You've talked about the input and the output. You've talked about crude coming in, the output, the various products. What else is BPCL about as a company today?
So actually, we are structured in such, when we started off as a refining company, then we became a marketing company. That was almost concurrently. Whatever we refined, but those days or still today, we still import crude, right? But as we grew in the size in the company, we realized that our product security is not in a comfortable position. We needed to integrate with the upstream so that we have become a completely integrated company. And this is very cyclical business. If the upstream moves up, the refining goes down, and vice versa, because of cost dynamics. So we realized that we need to do so. Early in 2008, we started getting into the exploration business. We worked on it, and we have acquired assets in Brazil and Mozambique. Like exploration is a long drawn process, so we are in the process. So we get early returns are expected in 27, 28. Okay. So we believe we have got a good asset in Mozambique, and we think it's going to turn out big if it works out well.
Right. So that's the exploration part. So, and then there's the renewables part. So one part of renewables is obviously let's say the EV network, charging network that you're setting up.
And so let's look at it. I will slightly change your question. I mean, slightly answer it in a different way. Since the pandemic, the world has changed, right? There was energy transition, which is a very, very serious requirement because the environment is changing because of use of fossil fuel. But the world realized that transition is slightly getting delayed. And we believe strongly that the fossil fuel will be there for a couple of years. Because the country needs energy, needs to develop. 50% of the country only today is developed. 50% is still, and we're still growing. So probably by 2050, 60% may not have grown. So energy is going to, and the space at which energy is growing, we will not be able to replace fossil fuel driven energy with renewable energy. Right. It's going to take time. So both are going to work on it parallelly. So for example, we feel India consumption of petchem in India is only very low compared to the world. So there is a huge space for us to grow. Per capita consumption is very low. So there is an opportunity for us to grow. Although China is big, but they are in terms of volume, but for us consumption growth story is there. So we have now investing big in Bina, a plant, and in Kochi. 2 plants we are investing. That will be the building blocks for plastics and other construction material. Petchem is gas. Prime Minister stated an ambition is to move from 6% to 15%. There is a huge opportunity there. So we understand that there is an opportunity. We are also going big on gas. We have about 50 GS where we are putting the CGD connections across. We are also looking at the industrial segment so that we try and convert them to gas-based economy. The third part is renewables, which we feel there are 5 or 6 elements of the renewal block. One is bioethanol, which is being used. So ethanol, we are also building up a 2G and 1G plant in Bargar and Orissa, which will be commissioned end of next year. That's as far as bio. We are also looking at about 5% biodiesel, which we will be using, and 5% diesel. Ethanol also, blending, we are experimenting with. These are the 3 bioethanols in the bioethanol space.
So ethanol blends with petrol. And that's happening. You're saying
we are also
lower proportion with
diesel because it's not yet
proven in that sense.
So we work experimenting with that. We are doing some trials, but there's some time off. So these are 3 things for bio. Then we are also looking at CBG big time. 26 biogas plants we are planning to put across the country. We are looking at government for support for giving us feedstock, which is the municipal solid waste, because that's a disposal of municipal solid waste is a reality. So we're tying up. We have just recently tied up in Kochi with the municipality for giving us. So that project is already started. We have now got about 15 sites. We're now tying up the deal for the solid waste. Once that feedstock is tied up, we'll have a good arrangement, and about 26 will come in 5-6 years. We will be coming. So that is by SAF. We're trying to process used cooking oil in the refineries. Now the mandate has also come. So 1%, 2% or gradually over the year. Green hydrogen is big. You know about the National Green Hydrogen Mission, which the Prime Minister has stated. So the stated intent is 5 million metric tons by 2030. But we are going small on that because we just started our experiment with the electrolyzer in Bina refinery. We have also developed co-created one with BRC. So that will be the first, if that works, that will be the first indigenous electrolyzer we make. Most of the electrolyzers are imported. So this BRC development, which we made a 500 kilowatt electrolyzer. We are trying to experiment it in our R&D center.
When you put EV chargers, is the gain more because you're keeping the customer in the same premises and therefore all the add-on benefits, or is it something else?
Right now, we are not looking at so much of the benefits.
Okay.
Right now, I'm giving an option to the bouquet of offering to the consumer that if he comes with a petrol vehicle or diesel vehicle or an EV vehicle, I'm giving you my offering. But there are limitations of space at many of the city outlets. So I need charging station because the electricity, I need a transformer installed along with it, so on and so forth. But we also need to engage him for 30 minutes when the charging is on. So that is why our in and out stores work well. That's our strategy.
Right.
We'll try and keep him engaged with. So we're looking at various options to keep him engaged.
And what's changed in the stores? I mean, the stores are several decades old now. I mean, they've been there for several decades. Is there anything new that's going to happen?
See, there are two types of stores which we have. One which we have in the cities. One we are looking at experimenting at slightly mid-level grocery in the rural area. We feel rural is the place where FMCG is growing phenomenally. And we have an opportunity because we have captive footprints coming to our outlet. So there we are experimenting a different format, but it's too early stages for us to.
So coming back to the consumer, so loyalty is an important part. One way you ensure loyalty is with cards and co-branded credit cards or debit cards and so on. How is that, if you were to look back now, let's say a decade or two, how has that worked out? And is that something that you feel is one of your, or could be a continuing USP?
Yes, obviously, right. Very early in 1999, we launched Petrol Bonus, which was a prepaid loyalty card where people actually paid in advance to use it. That time, the time and context was completely different in the sense that very few people were given credit cards because of the strict credit norms and all. So if holding a card was a status symbol, so we had a roaring... and people use that card phenomenally. We went up to about 2.5-3 million individual customers. What we gained was we knew the exact profile of the customer. I could tailor offerings to these people. Over the years, we have developed. We have also now gone very big in the fleet segment, where I give a complete fleet solution to the fleet owner. Right from the safe fueling, money transfer. For example, if somebody picks up load delivers a load at, say, Assam, somewhere in Assam, he collects huge amount of money for that transshipment. And once he collects, he does not know what to do. It's not pretty safe even today on the highway. So he has that facility to deposit at the RO, and that gets credited into the owner's account. So these are kind of facility where he also has all the doctor on call, emergency pickups. He can go to outlets, rest for a while. So complete solution for the driver and the fleet owner. So these are some of the loyalty, and we think loyalty will go a long way. Even UFIL is another way of doing it, so that I know he can be sure of what it is, and we feel that it has demonstrated that it's a good repeat customer base we have.
As you look ahead, what is going to be the most, let's say, where is the battle going to be fought for a consumer's mind or wallet?
Data will be king. How I use the data on his preferences, and how well I personalize the offer will be the key differentiator. So that is where our foundations of the others are basic. As far as I understand, quality, quantity is given. You cannot call it a differentiator anymore. What you will be giving, how well I treat you as an individual. When Govind walks into the outlet, if I say, hello Govind, how are you? That takes you to a different level comparatively. We are a long way off, but that is where we want to go, where I need to identify you as a person, with specific requirements and needs. You will be completely different from the other customer who is following you.
Sure.
So unless I am able to personalize my offering to that extent, that will be the battle, I think, which will make the difference.
Right. And it's almost like it's a holy grail, but which is in sight.
Yeah. It's a good insight for us. But one of the things is now the world is so interconnected. I'm not compared for services at the petrol station. I'm compared with maybe a McDonald's or maybe a service in the mall or even an Amazon. How quick I'm responding to it. When you go searching or book for a book in the Amazon, They'll tell you, you have been reading these sort of books. That's the kind of level of personalization somebody is able to reach. And many of these startups have come with amazing ideas. They can tailor it. But certain times at the station, we are limited because of the space. But that's where the game, I think, will change, where we can personalize the offering to the granularist detail.
Right. And you mentioned startups, and this is one of my last questions. But so when you talk to, or the BPCL system is talking to startups or engaging with them, what are the problems that you're trying to solve today or are trying to address today?
Productivity, efficiency is basically the problem statements which we have. But largely, I try to see how best I can serve the customer better. Increasingly, the customer who is coming to the fuel station, because it's a low involvement product. He doesn't have any involvement with the product. He doesn't take a decision on to buy or not to buy. He has no choice. He's coming to buy it. So he feels, probably most of them feel it's a grudge purchase, not a price being what it is. He doesn't like buying petrol or diesel. So these startups, what we are trying to do is how best we can make that customer experience, that interaction with the fuel station that much better, that much faster, so that he's in and out quickly. And that is where we want to try and make a difference. And then by probably, I don't know, maybe a time will come that as soon as he walks in, some sensor will read the car and say, he normally fills 20 liters of petrol like we do. When we go to ATM, you say, this is your favorite withdrawal number. Why don't you try it? So probably that's where we will reach. Right. And the quicker he gets delivered and he's out of the station.
Right.
And whatever forms of energy he wants, we should be able to cater to.
Yeah. That's it. Right. Okay. Last question. So the India Energy Week is coming up. So what are you looking forward to from that whole engagement, interaction?
I think it's one of the best platforms which have been created in the country so far. It gives us a wide expanse of opportunities to meet people, see technology, and see how we can best adapt practices. I think at this sort of platform and interaction will give us a lot of legway in the future to come. We get access to technologies which we have never seen before. So I think the India Energy Week is a good platform for us to scale up. And then plus there are lots of on the side dealings with national oil companies, which also gives us a lot of opportunities for business. Also to showcase our companies as well as to learn from those companies.
Right. And when you say technology, what all aspects of technology do you
completely from the refining process to consumer process, every single piece of the value chain, we can look at opportunities for doing that. And there are so many startups who showcases new technology, new processes, which can be adapted to our use. May not be directly, but we can work on it and work on some adaptation. We found last time also, we found a couple of them on which we are working, or we're working on a membraneless technology for hydrogen. A couple of things we can work on it. So I think this gives a good opportunity, a huge number of footfalls in this 3 days which we get, which we may not get otherwise.
Right. And
getting to meet each one of them separately would take years for us to do.
Right. On that note, Mr. Krishnakumar, thank you so much for speaking with me.
Thank you. Thank you, Govind. Pleasure me talking.
Thank you.